Just a reminder of what's our top story this morning. Leaders around the world condemn as despicable the killings in the Ukrainian town of Bucha. Boris Johnson said the attacks were yet more evidence that Putin and his army are committing war crimes. So let's turn to the front pages in a bit more depth now. We're joined by Timothy Santon, international journalist with Young Voices UK, for an analysis this morning. Good morning, Timothy.
Good morning, Anna.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Now, just to make us a little bit jealous, I understand you're actually not in the UK at the moment. You're where?
No, I'm not. I'm currently in Tuscany.
OK, I think probably the less said about that, the better. It's better weather than here. Listen, let's go into a bit more depth in the front pages this morning. The Times. This image that's on the front page of the Times, I'll just describe it a little bit. You see, looking down a street, a couple of people walking across, and what you see is dead bodies, right, very focused up. It's a very powerful image, isn't it?
Very powerful. This is one of the many horrific images coming out of one of the suburbs of the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, namely Bucha, showing civilians lying dead along the street, with their hands bound behind their backs. And these are very harrowing images indeed, and have led to a very strong condemnation, and rightly so, on the part of Western leaders.
And the questions do get asked when you see images like this as to whether they should appear on our front pages. I was reading Catherine Philp's report, her reportage, which is on the front page, and she visited Bucha, and the details are horrific of what she saw. You can hear from her later on the breakfast show here on Times Radio. But it was interesting, some of the comments on the Times, on her article, was saying that there was one comment saying we shouldn't have these images. I wonder what you think about this.
Well, I think we should. I think it's very important that the public does realise the reality of what is happening in Ukraine. As long as a balance is struck between images that the public can tolerate and those which it cannot. I see that the images on the front page of the Times, some are blotted out.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a correct decision on the part of the editors, because those are obviously very strong images indeed. But I think in general, the public should know what Russian troops have been doing in and around Kiev.
Yeah, I mean, some countries you will see such images reported without anything being blotted out. And sometimes there's a question about whether we sanitise things. But I think you're right that certainly today these images are all over the front pages. Genocide is the headline in the Daily Mirror. Massacre of innocents is the headline in the paper. Most of the papers this morning do go with this. What else has jumped out at you today?
What has jumped out at me today, with the story in Ukraine, Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, has announced that Britain would support a war crimes investigation in the International Criminal Court. Boris Johnson has been very forceful in promising to bring Putin to The Hague to face war crimes. And there have also been, in addition to these images from Bucha and Irpin, additional allegations made by Human Rights Watch of rape in towns such as Chernihiv in the northeast of the country and in Kharkiv in the east. Melinda Simmons, the British ambassador to Ukraine, has said that rape has been used by Russian troops as a weapon of war. I think that's
just horrific. Yeah. I mean, what's interesting, really, I suppose, in the development of this story, and it's always difficult, certainly for war reporters, the The large-scale invasion by Russia of Ukraine is now into its fifth week, and we saw initially the heavy bombardment, a lot of shelling, but now what we're hearing is that the Russian troops are focusing more on the east, and this is allowing independent reporters to get into these areas and to see what has happened. And I think we'll probably hear more of this. The Eye has some analysis concluding that the Russian invasion has shattered Ukraine's infrastructure, including the destruction of 300 schools and 70 hospitals. I mean, the more information that we get out, the more desperate it does appear.
Yes, that's right. The problem is that the Kremlin has consistently denied committing what amount to be war crimes. And in the case of the images coming out of Bucha, the defense ministry in Moscow has said, not surprisingly, that these pictures have been staged. So it's very hard to reach any kind of compromise or peace deal with a government that has a completely different view on what is going on. You have one side in the war, Ukraine, accusing Russia of committing genocide, and the other government in Russia saying that these are completely false allegations and that they have been staged purposely as a kind of war theater by the Ukrainian government. So since we are seeing the latest peace talks in Turkey, I think it's now with these latest images, it will be very hard to see any kind of compromise there.
And just wondering, Timothy, you said that you're actually in Tuscany this morning. How is the Italian media treating this? Are they splashing these images as well?
Yes, they are. I think these images are going around the world at the moment. Italy is, as you know, very dependent on Russian gas. So here the focus is very much on what the plan will be going forward, and how Italy will manage to wean itself off Russian gas and energy imports. Britain is less reliant on Russian gas, but Italy, like Germany, is in this difficult position where the government wants to stand by its European partners and allies and take a very tough stance on Russia. But at the same time, it has to balance the interests of Italian citizens in their energy costs. And the Italian government has stated that it will reopen its coal plants. It will find alternative energy supplies. But yes, that does seem to be the focus of the public debate here in Italy, and it has been since the beginning. But today, yes, the papers, the La Repubblica, La Stampa, all the major national newspapers are focusing on the scenes out of Irpin and Bucha.
Okay, well, really interesting to talk to you, Timothy. Thanks for joining us this morning. That's Timothy Santon, international journalist with Young Voices UK, and of